Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining. Super excited about being here. This is Project Communication Tools, Project Communications 2.0. My name is Bill Dow. I have 30 plus years of hands-on experience. I'm currently the director of the PMO of the University of Washington. I was at Microsoft for 14 years, ran 8 PMOs there, ran a PMO at AT&T and Singular. Worked in the government of British Columbia for 8 years. I'm an instructor at Bellevue College in the local Seattle area. So super passionate about these topics and lots of experience. I've been a speaker and a presenter since 2008. In 2020, I was selected the top 16 in the world PMO leaders. PMO Symposium in 2016, 2018 in London, England. I spoke at the the PMO conference. Project Summit World. I've got a great YouTube channel called Dow Publishing on YouTube. I've got tons of videos up there. Keep adding them all the time. So excited about that. I'm also a 4-time author, the PMO Lifecycle, Building, Running, and Shutting Down, Project Management Communication Tools, Tactical Guide for Building a PMO, and Project Management Communication Bible. So very passionate, lots of experience in this space, and I'm certainly excited about sharing today's information. So we've got a great agenda. We're going to talk about the problem statements. We'll go over Project Communications 2.0, talk about colors, talk about text versus graphics, real-time status, sharing and collaboration. We'll get into communications in the remote world. We'll summarize and give you some more information. Sound good? Awesome. Okay, let's start with the problem statement. So after discussing over and over why projects fails, and we've been having this conversation for years, we still do not communicate effectively on our projects. Projects today continue to fail based on ineffective communications. Survey after survey show poor communications continues to be a major failure point. So, because communications is a huge passion for me, it got me thinking. And that results of that is Project Communications 2.0. So as we mature in project management, we need to reinvent the way we communicate project information. This means we have to look at communications from different angles and different views. Well, today I'd like to introduce Project Communications 2.0. I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm super excited about what we're about to share. My first book on project communications came out in 2008. I've continued to be passionate about it and continue to move that bar forward. And today I'm going to help you move that bar. So there's really 4 major components we want to talk about from a communications perspective. Color definitions, text versus graphics, real-time status, and document sharing and collaboration. Make sense? Actually, you know what? There's 5. Remote communications. With COVID-19 and all the stuff that we're going through from a global pandemic perspective, we have to add communications and remote communications into that conversation. Make sense? Good. Let's dive in. So project colors. Project colors are a funny thing. Project managers have been getting creative with colors for years and years. My gut is, and my advice is, stick to the basic colors. Don't get creative. It causes confusions. It causes problems from a communication perspective, and it's just frankly not needed. I've seen tons of different variations, and it doesn't help when we talk about colors. So, very basic. Red is red. Project's in trouble. Yellow is yellow. Projects that have some issues. Green is green. We've seen these definitions before. You can tweak the wording. Your executives are going to default. Red's trouble. Yellow's caution. Green's okay. I can't stress enough from a communication perspective how important it is to stay to these basic color definitions. It just does not make sense when you have multiple color definitions, especially when you're running a PMO. You've got 29 or 30 project managers executing 3 or 4 projects at a time. You have to have basic color definitions. That makes sense? So if it's 1 or 2 project managers, they can get a little creative, but when you scale it, I still think it's I don't think that you should scale, or sorry, when you scale it, you should still stick to these basic definitions. And even if you have one or two project managers, stick to these basics. Don't let them get creative. It's too confusing. So what do I mean by that? What have I seen? I've seen orange. I've seen various colors and variations of orange. I've seen yellow, different shades of yellow. I've seen green, different shades of green. That's crazy. That just causes a certain huge confusion. You don't want to do it. Executives don't get it. What's yellow? What's orange? What's red? Forget it. Stick to red, yellow, and green and really get that standard definitions out there, and every project manager use the same one, right? One of the most important aspects of project communications is the actions that project managers take when you go from green to yellow, from yellow to red, from red to green, right? And all those various combinations. To date, we've seen very limited to no documentation on how projects should change their communications based on color. Color definitions are a major source of frustrations with stakeholders and team members, right? Ensure you're tracking color definitions as closely as possible in your projects and keep it simple, right? Keep it simple so everyone is understanding what does red mean, what does yellow mean, and what does green mean. And we're going to dive into this documentation thing coming up. But it's really, really important to really keep it basic from a red, yellow, green perspective. Make sense? Awesome. So project communication 2.0. So one of the key components and one of the things I've been teaching for years and years is take your communication plan, the one that you have today, you're all using across your projects, and add new components to that. Okay, so add the different components. We'll walk through what those are, and then we're going to have a spin to those. So for many years and right, in both my communication books, I've stated we've done a poor job in project communications. We can see that survey after survey. So what I've done is I've recommended a new set of tools to enhance the documents that the project managers are already using today, right? Well, these tools have proven to be successful, hugely successful, year over year, project over project. We've seen these tools be very, very successful and have helped project managers around the world, which is really, really exciting. So here's your communication plan, right? You've got your existing plan. Every company has them. But what I've always said, and I've said for years now, is change your plan. Add these 6 sections. Add an org chart, a circle communications chart, a communication requirements matrix, a role report matrix, a time frame, a calendar, and lessons learned. Take your existing communication plan that you have today, add these 6 new components, okay? And I've seen these work. I've seen them at Microsoft. I've seen them at Boeing. I've seen them at T-Mobile. I've seen them from companies around the world. People are adding these components, and they're making a huge difference on how they communicate project information. So here they are again. Let's go deep into these. So here's your project organization chart. So you've got build out the top, use pictures where possible. If your company will politically let you get away with putting a project organization chart, use a project organization chart. Add pictures where you can add them. But again, these aren't HR charts. These are project organizational charts. Huge difference and very, very valuable. And most people do ask who's working on the project. And this will give you that example or give you that ability to show that. If you can't use that and your team and your organization won't allow you to get away with that, then use the project circle of communication chart. You've got the project manager in the dead center. He or she owns all communications. You've got the leads around the side. Everyone's communicating. Everyone's able to communicate. And basically, this gives you a view into who's running the project, who's driving the communication of the projects. But I've got a question. What happens when a project goes to red? Who do you communicate to? Do you have to communicate to everyone? Right? Does everyone have to be involved? Well, let's take the circle of communication and let's put a red condition on it. Now we have a SWAT team. Okay, so when this project goes to red, this is a development project. We've got to pull these people together. So what we've done here is we've taken this red condition and we've applied it to the circle of communications. So now we know exactly who needs to be involved in this daily SWOT analysis, right? So not everyone has to be involved, and it depends on where we are in the project, but you may not need to bring in a captain, the training lead, when the project goes to red at the very beginning, or we're in the very early stages. So this circle of communication chart with a red condition allows you to very, very quickly pull together the right components and the right people to solve this. Now, what happens when the project goes to yellow? Well, there's some awareness partners. Okay, now we got to start pulling in some different people. And you'll see poor Cass not involved yet, but again, really just an example, but it's using the circle communications chart with these color conditions. And then, of course, when it's back to green, everything's normal. Nothing has to happen. This is what we're using already today. But this just gives you a really good feel for how you can take these same tools in a yellow condition or a red condition and start driving how you're going to communicate effectively through that. I love that because it's really driving the effectiveness of the colors. And what do I do when a project's in red? What do I do when it's yellow from a circle communications perspective? You're already using the tools today. Now you start having those active conversations. What happens in red? What happens in yellow? What do you think? Do you guys love that? I do. I think it's great. And it's really taking that next level of communications to that next step. Here's your communication requirements matrix, right? We talked about this one for years. Across the top, you got the project manager, the stakeholder, internal team members. Down the side, you got the same roles. The value to this tool is really that intersection cell. So Bill's worked with Sally, and Sally says, I want a status report, I want a financial report, I want a schedule update, right? So the power to this tool really sits in that intersection cell, and what are the combinations and what information should be shared, right? Sally's going to send information to Bill. Bill's going to send information to Sally. That's the power of that tool. But again, what happens when a project goes to red? Okay, so now who wants to see what in a red situation? Well, Sally wants to see a daily staff report, a daily financial report, a daily schedule update, right? So the team member, Sally wants to send that information, right? So again, we're starting to apply the color conditions to our communication requirements matrix. What happens in a yellow situation? This awareness. Well, I'll see a bi-weekly. I'll say I still want a daily when we're in yellow. Maybe it's this report or this project's very financially focused, but I want a bi-weekly schedule. So you start tweaking based on the colors, what information needs to be sent to who, as the color conditions change. And then, of course, we go back to the existing report. Does that make sense? So we're starting to really look at our different tools that we're already using today, and we're applying that color status. Here's the role report matrix, right? Across the top, name, on demand, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Down the side, you got the roles. Down the side, you've got the name, John, Peter, Mark. Okay, same scenario. Mark wants a on-demand stakeholder report. He wants a status report monthly. He wants a quarterly status report. You can see exactly who gets what report and when do they get it. Okay, situation is we're now in red. So now what happens? Well, in a red condition, John wants a status report on demand. He wants a cost report. Peter, Mark, Bruce, they all want daily reports. So we've taken this same tool and we've applied the red condition to it. We've applied the yellow condition to it, right? Again, awareness. What do we want to see on demand? What do we want to see bi-weekly, weekly? So you're taking that role report matrix and you're applying a red condition and you're applying a yellow condition to those existing reports. How powerful is that? I love this. I love this tool. It's very simple, very easy to use. But when you start applying the color conditions to it, it even makes it more valuable and one tool that your customers are absolutely going to love. Let's keep going. The project calendar. We've talked about these for years, right? When do the teams get together? When do the reports go out? When do we submit our status reports, right? Well, what happens when the project goes to red? Well, we continue to stay in these daily meetings, right? On Mondays, daily team meetings, daily executive briefings, daily status reports. Week 2, same thing. Oh, maybe there's daily something else, a financial report or whatever. Week 3, week 4, right? Hopefully projects don't stay in red that long, but you're starting to look at from a calendar perspective and the rhythm perspective of how things change when a project goes to red. Yellow, we've got some bi-weekly, right? Bi-weekly customer and team, bi-weekly executive reports. Mondays and Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays, we do something different. The team decides what happens week 3 and 4. So again, it's around taking the color conditions and adding them to the calendar to really give you that view of what you do in that red and yellow, right? So it really makes a huge difference when you start thinking red, you're thinking yellow, and how you can start really making these tools even more valuable. So by adapting your tools to the color conditions of your project, you're proactively changing the conversation. You're now in a position to know who to contact based on the color condition. Not everyone has to be aware of something when the project color changes. Everyone doesn't have to go to red alert, right? It just doesn't make sense. That training Kath we talked about, she doesn't maybe need to be involved early on in the project when it goes to red. Project managers must change their approach to communications. Far too many project managers are still sending that single status report as their only method of communications, and it has to stop, right? Too many projects are failing due to poor communications. We've got to change this rhythm up. And we've got to change what we're doing. What do you think? Love that? Awesome. Let's keep going. Let's go graphics versus text. This is one of my favorite topics. I absolutely love this topic. And when we think about project communications 2.0, we got to start talking graphics versus text. Question. Do you ask your stakeholders this very simple question? Do you ask your stakeholders, are you a graphics person? Are you a text person? If you do, awesome. If you don't, why not? Why don't you ask that very simple question? Do you know if they're text or graphics preference? Do you know that? Most project managers do not acknowledge the importance of this conversation. By asking this one simple question, you're ensuring you're covering at least 50% of your audience. Text people will not respond well to graphics. They will think the information is not detailed enough, they won't value it, or they'll ignore the information being sent. Graphics people, myself, will get lost in those numbers. Too much details, overwhelmed, not know where to start. Basically, if you send me a 100-page or 100-row Excel spreadsheet, I will have no idea what to do with it. Okay? So, not good. There are graphics people and there are text people, and we've got to get better in this. Okay? One of the traps project managers fall into is thinking that one is better than the other. Often, project managers will think, hey, I'll go and I'll create what I like to see and really ignore the preferences of their stakeholders. So I'm a graphics person, and so I'll send graphics type of charts out there, but they may be falling on deaf ears because I'm sending them to text people. So don't get stuck in that trap. Ask your stakeholders what they like to see and how they like to see it. Knowing that information is going to be critical in you communicating effectively. So let's spend some time. Let's look at some facts around and decisions around text versus graphics. Okay? So our brains process visual information better. Fact. 60,000 times better. 90% of the info the brain receives is nonverbal. Okay? 80% of what they see, they remember. Social media has jumped on this bandwagon. Graphic posts have 67% more audience. Okay? So graphics makes a huge difference. And they will make a huge difference for the graphics-oriented people. But the text people are going to want the data. You have to know that, right? So one of the challenges PM run into is knowing the preferences. So here's 3 sets of advice. Ask them. Simply ask them. Observe. Review their communications and their emails. What do they send? Go into their office. Look at their whiteboards. Understand if their whiteboards are empty, if they're full of text, if they're full of graphics. Go in there and work through that process. If they're full of graphics, what do you think's happened there? Well, let me tell you, like mine are. When someone comes into my office, there's a ton of graphics because I've asked someone to explain what they're talking about and draw it out on the whiteboard. I'm a graphics person. Listen to what they say and how they like the data, right? Very simple, very basic, but we have to change the conversation. Some people will not resonate with graphics. They are people that simply like text and always like text. And what do I mean by text? I mean rows and rows of data, right? They like that rows of data. They like to manipulate that data and get in there. You can create a beautiful graphic, but a text person's a text person and they're not going to resonate with that graphic. Asking this simple question, are you a text person or a graphics person? It may sound weird, but it's going to fundamentally change the way you send project information going forward, and they're going to resonate much, much better. Don't be afraid to ask that question. It may say a simple, a basic question. It may seem a little weird. Ask the question anyway. I can't stress enough. Okay, let's keep going. Let's go into number 3, real-time status. This is becoming more and more important. And when you think about Project Communications 2.0, you have to think of real-time status. The mobile phone has changed the business world. I'm not being sarcastic. What I'm saying is that phone and the dynamics of getting that information fast and what people want and expect the information. Access to project information is no exception. If I pick up my phone and I can get instant access to project reports and to dashboards, that changes the dynamics and the reporting considerations for PMs around the world. Does that make sense? So we all have mobile phones stuck to us. We all want to now start seeing project information. So let's dive into that. But before we do, I think this is important. A recent article from Microsoft said goldfish have higher attention spans than we do thanks to the digital lifestyle. So a goldfish has a higher attention span than most people because of those mobile phones. Right? Think about that. Think about how important that is, right? Imagine, for example, if your Facebook was down, right? And how stressed out you would be if you went to Facebook and you couldn't actually see your feed, right? So because of that, and because that stresses you out, what it's saying, what this article is saying is we've got very short attention spans. And because we have short attention spans, the access to real-time information is even more important. So tons of mobile versions of these apps, Power BI, Project, Teams, Office, Planner, SharePoint, right? There's a million types of mobile versions out there, which is going to give us that real-time access. But by using the mobile phone apps, you must put together a whole new communication strategy for your project data. PMO and project managers are going to have to cater and have project information currently updated to make reporting and dashboards real-time. Stakeholders who have real-time access to data are going to expect that data to be fresh, or it really defeats the purpose of real-time access. So things are going to need to change in the PM processes to make this happen. Just because we have mobile phones, just because we need the real-time data, it doesn't mean we can pivot on a dime. We're going to have to think about this. So what are some of the things we can do? Project schedule. It can go real-time. There's some mobile apps, iOS, Android for sure. But what we're going to have to do is we do a weekly update. We're going to have to do a daily update. Project budget, project status, project documents, dashboards and reports. And I'm going to give you a minute to look at this because this is a fundamental change that we would have to do. where it says goes from weekly to daily, right? Just think about that for a sec, and I'll just pause and let you read that. That makes sense? So again, you can't change this on a dime, but you got to think about what could be available. Let's look at budget, for example, right? I want an updated status on our budget. Well, budgets across the world change monthly. So we can give you some Power BI financial reports, but you're not going to get that data daily. You're going to get that monthly. That's not going to change. But what we can do is we can serve up some mobile reports to give that information, but understand that will stay monthly. So it's real time, yeah, but it's updated monthly, and financial processes are not going to change. But there's some other changes that could happen. Okay, so let's keep diving into that. So project status reporting for a project manager. Currently, the project manager puts status in on a weekly or monthly, depending on the size and complexity. With stakeholders needing real-time access to information, it would require the PM shifting to daily updates. Okay? Team member status, same thing. They go from weekly, they're going to have to shift. Financials, we're not going to change financials, but maybe the forecasting could change. So there's maybe a little bit that can change, but generally financials are monthly and that's not going to change. But what are the other areas? So what are we getting you to do here? We're getting you to think about the current processes that we have from a PM perspective. We're thinking about real-time access, and we're thinking about shifting the way we do things on our projects to be able to serve up that real-time access. Now, is there going to be a cost to that? 100%. But maybe that cost in this remote real-time world is going to be worth it. And so you have to think about that. So Project Communications 2.0 says, hey, we got to do some more real-time status, but what are the shifts and the costs and the trade-offs to make that happen? So as we summarize with that, project real-time information is going to take project managers to make changes across the board. Tool changes, processes changes, it's not going to happen overnight, but they are exciting times. There are some things that we can think about from a mobile strategy perspective that can actually help us get some more and great information out to our customers. So watch for the latest software updates, right? The various mobile phone options. We're seeing more and more features, more and more enhancements, right? So we're really in for some great things from a mobile perspective. But again, it's not going to change overnight. A weekly status report to a daily is going to fundamentally change things, and that's not something we can just pivot and do. But think about how that and how real-time status can make a huge update in how you're executing your projects. Number 4, document share and collaborations, right? Let's move to document sharing, right? We just talked about that a little bit from a mobile perspective, but virtual employees are here to stay. So much so, I saw an article that 50% of the U.S. population is going to be that way as a standard operating model. We're hearing trends, 90% of remote employees plan to continue to work remotely for the rest of their careers. More and more companies are shifting to that remote, saving on office space, reducing their footprints. And with so much remote work going on, the importance of document sharing and collaboration and working together is really, really more important. COVID-19 obviously enhanced this and really sped things up, right? And so we're starting to see more and more companies go to that remote, and these document sharing tools like SharePoint and Teams and all the various products out there is becoming more and more important. So let's step back though. Let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. Document sharing is the ability to share documents in real time, the ability for one person, regardless of where they are in the world, to pick up that document and start working on it. Collaboration, this is where the cloud comes in. They have built-in functionality to allow multiple team members to get in there into a single document and work on them together. A great example is Office 365 Office products, but we see that with Excel, right? How many times do you open up Excel and 10 other people are on there doing those updates, which is awesome, right? And so that's exactly where we want to be in this remote world, right? When we think about Project Communications 2.0, and document sharing, we're starting a whole new level of conversations with our team members. Many project teams continue to share and keep project information to the project team and is shared and filtered to their stakeholders. It may be a little bit harder and harder to do when we're talking about sharing documents across everyone involved in the project, but moving the bar of communications means sharing all information to the stakeholders on the project. There'll be times, though, when you need to reduce or limit some of that information, but that's just part of running the project. But there are going to be times where you're going to maybe want a smaller group to see something happening in the project before it gets rolled out to absolutely everyone. So you got to think about that. There's no shortage of collaboration tools. SharePoint, Teams, Office. There's millions and millions of tools out there, but we got to start thinking about how we use those, right? So today's world is filled with virtual workers and people wanting access to information on every device they own. Project managers need to be on top of this conversation to be successful at running their projects, right? Get to know and understand the tools in your organization is running to better communicate project information and stay connected to your stakeholders. And as we continue in COVID, we continue in this remote world, this is going to be even more important. Okay, and let's keep going with that. So last section, 5, right? Project communications in the remote world. Remote work is not new, and any project manager who's been working since the early 2000s has experienced that. We had a little thing called Y2K. Kicked off all of this remote work for the business world, right? When Y2K happened, remote work and work in India and work around the world became a thing. What's new in this, and what's really more new than anything, is leadership and management are now working in that remote world, which they never did in the Y2K world, right? So we're experiencing a whole new level of exposure and complexities of communicating in a remote world now that our leadership and our management are actually in this remote environment with us. So there's been project managers that have been remote project managers working for companies all around the world for years and years and years, right? 20 years now, right? 2000, Y2K. But management and the executives and leaders were never in that remote world, or very few. All of them were in the office. But now with COVID, that has radically changed things. So let's look back, right? So what did we have? We had the Y2K disaster, right? The whole world's going to fall apart. We had a local project manager. We had a local on-site project manager. So when I was at AT&T, we had someone representing someone in India, and then we had a PM in India. Then in 2005, we said, oh, stop that. That's getting too expensive. We'll just have a local project manager, and we'll have a project manager in India. And then in 2005, 2010, different countries opened up. Japan, China, Mexico, right? Different countries opened up to the remote world, and now the world's remote with 2020 and COVID. So it's this remote communications and this remote project management has been around for a while. And so you just have to consider that. But what has happened since Y2K, and we've seen some of these before, but what has happened is these tools got better, right? Teams got better, Zooms got better, right? And so these products became more and more important because executives are now playing a huge role and they're all dealing with these. So it's super, super important that we understand that these tools have been around, projects have been around forever, right? Power BI has been around forever, but they're getting better and better and better because our executives are using them and expecting more. So communications, right, in a remote world is not new. I'm sorry, it's not new. Color in the communication tools, right? That's new, but that's communications 2.0, and we should have been doing that for years. Text versus graphic, really important in the remote world. We covered that. Follow up on communications, right? More either direct emails or status meeting. Remote PMs have been doing this for years, right? If you're a PM in remote working with in India, for example, and working with someone here in the Seattle area, Well, there's been a lot of communications and a lot of follow-up that's had to happen. So using real-time tools to your advantage will allow you to keep the stream of communications flowing on your projects in this remote world. Okay, so as we summarize, I don't want to burst any bubbles, but as you can see, remote project management and remote communications is nothing new. It feels new because there's a new level of people doing it that has never done it before, or very limited, right? Companies like AT&T, Microsoft, Amazon, they've been doing this successfully for years and years and years. It's always been a challenge to communicate effectively for project managers in a remote world. There's no question. But today we cover some great tools and a great way to look back and what we've been doing for 20 years and really enhancing our communications. So as we summarize, we've covered a lot of information today, right? Colors, colors, colors. Don't estimate how powerful it is to add colors to your existing tools. Your project teams and your customers will love it. Text versus graphics. Ask your customers. I can't stress enough how important it is. Ask that simple question. It's going to go a long way in effective communications. Real-time status. We need information now at our fingertips. Figure out a way to provide that to your customers. It's going to require a change of process. It's going to require a change of the way you do business today, but we've got to provide that real-time status. Sharing and collaboration, right? We've been doing that for years and years, but it's becoming more and more important as our executives, as our customers, as our stakeholders are all in that remote world. And again, remote project management, it's been around for years and years. It's always been challenging, but don't get caught up in the hype that this is new and we don't know what to do and we've never done this before because of COVID. We have done it. We've done it for 20 years. It's different for sure, but it's not that radically different that we can't work ourselves through it and become effective and great communicators. Okay, so for more information, please check out my book, Project Management Communication Tools, published in 2016, updated in 2019, constantly updating, constantly putting more information out there. My name is Bill Dow. You can get me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Bill Dow at DowPublishingLLC.com. Here are my 2 books again on Amazon, PMO Lifecycle, Project Communication Tools. I'll pause now for questions. Thank you again. We shared a lot of great information. Super, super excited. Thank you all. Have a great day.